All right. Good afternoon, ladies. So super excited to have you here. My name is Quinn Hayes, and I'm the Program and Grants Manager for Together Women Rise. It is my pleasure to have with us today Katia Gomes and Cata Mejia from Educate2Envision, also known as E2E, our June grantee. We warmly would like to thank you both for joining us today. We're super excited to learn more about your organization and the work that you're doing. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves, tell me your name and how long you guys have been at the organization or what is your roles, and then we'll get ready to play the short video that you'd like to share with our members. So Kata, would you like to start us?
Yes. Hi, everybody. My name is Cata Mejia, and I am a volunteer and advisor at Educate2Envision. I've been volunteering for the organization over 6 years, I believe.
Wow, thank you.
Great to be here, Quinn. Thanks for having us. I'm Katia Gomes, and I'm the founder, executive director of E2E, which we have been now running for a little over 10 years. So I'm still here running.
Well, we love that. We love that. So is it okay if I share your quick video with our members?
Absolutely.
Okay. Wonderful. I'm going to get us set up here.
Para las niñas que sigan estudiando, tengan el apoyo de nuestros padres para tener un mejor futuro. Gracias.
Puedan tener una buena educación, una buena alimentación, que tengan una familia estable, que haya amor, paz, alegría y sobre todo que disfruten cada etapa de su vida.
Van a ser una buena persona, van a tener la capacidad de ayudar a los demás, van a ser una agente de cambio positivos para ayudar a otras niñas y así cambiar, que ya no haya más corrupción y con más educación lo podemos lograr.
Seamos esos agentes de cambio que puede cambiar nuestra realidad, que puede cambiar nuestro mundo y también para que seamos ese granito de arena que puede ayudar a nuestra comunidad y a nuestra sociedad a seguir adelante. Mi consejo para el día de hoy, chicas, es que seamos siempre positivas porque yo sé que lo podemos lograr.
Beneficiado en la forma de que ahora ya no lo compro las cosas que yo tengo exactamente. Ya no compro la cebolla, le doy gracias a Dios, porque lo que es la fundación nos ha venido apoyando con las semillas. Me siento alegre porque ahora ya no tengo que ir a comprar un producto al mercado y he aprendido a cómo sembrarlo.
Felicitar, ¿verdad?, a los estudiantes graduandos. Chicos, ustedes pueden. No importa cuántas dificultades se presenten en el camino, no importan las críticas de las demás personas, ustedes pueden. Sigan adelante, chicos, que esta es un escalón más. Lo que ustedes están cumpliendo hoy, bueno, es una meta más. Sigan adelante. Lo mejor está por venir. Pongan mucho de su empeño.
Buenas tardes. Primeramente le damos gracias a Dios porque Él nos dio la oportunidad de estar aquí. Le quiero dar gracias a la fundación porque ella nos apoyó en estos 3 años y aprendimos muchas cosas. También le quiero dar gracias a todos los maestros que me enseñaron cosas desde que estaba en kinder y he llegado hasta aquí. Este es uno de los primeros logros. Estoy segura que vamos a llegar muy lejos y a luchar. El único que nos puede detener somos nosotros y espero que tengamos la fuerza para seguir adelante. Gracias. buenas tardes, sé que lo voy a lograr. También a mis compañeros, felicidades, éxitos, esto no termina aquí, vamos por más, este solo es un paso más a la educación. Yo sé que si lo podemos, si lo intentamos, podemos. Mientras no intentemos algo, no digamos no puedo. Así que les animo a mis compañeros a seguir adelante.
Wow, that was amazing. I'm sorry, I get so emotional looking at that. I was like, oh, don't cry. But that's so amazing. Thank you so much for that beautiful video to showcase how you're truly empowering the lives of young women. How touching. So why don't we go ahead and start our conversation and talk about this, unpack this a little bit more. So let's begin with the issues or your organization as a whole. So tell me about your organization, your mission, when was it funded, and how this funding has helped to inspire or propel the work that we just saw. So, Katia, if you'd like to begin.
Yeah, no, if it's okay, I'd like to start with kind of a general introduction to what our vision is and the funding piece. And I'd like to pass it over to Cata afterwards to talk more about what the actual need is in Honduras and what this project would do to help that need, and in general, what E2E is doing to fill that gap in education. So I like to describe what we do sort of in this broader term of, we really look to discover this untapped potential that exists in unexpected places is what I like to refer to it as. And when I say unexpected places, I really mean, the communities that these graduations in the video took place you're not going to find them on Google Maps. You're not going to find, a website for these communities. These places are so off the map and off the grid and largely invisible, really. These are communities that are invisible in terms of access to funding, in terms of government intervention and presence, in terms of just the number of NGOs that are there. And so when you have that invisibility, you also have girls within these communities that are invisible. So it's compounding the invisibility and the isolation that exists. So when you bring secondary school education, which is the potential that we're bringing to these young people, they are essentially these trailblazers. So when we start a secondary school in a rural Honduran community, these young people are literally the very first in the history of their communities to go beyond sixth grade. So these are trailblazers that are breaking the status quo of this belief that, your education will only stop at sixth grade. There is no hope for you. There is no opportunity for you. This is the life, and these are the cards that you were dealt. And we are changing that by actually making it accessible and affordable to actually go to middle school, to go to high school and beyond. And Kata can attest to, the remoteness of, the hours of walking or crossing rivers on horseback. I mean, we really work in these places, and we're proud to, but in some of the most difficult places to reach in the country. And so this funding, so RISE is really allowing us to, it's not cheap to actually access these locations. And so it's allowing us to really continue to invest in finding these girls who otherwise would have been hidden, who would have been invisible, and being able to empower them through education and our leadership training program, which, as you saw, a lot of the girls who gave their testimony of what they wish for other girls in the world, it's the leadership that they've been instilled with through being with the organization for 3 years. And that has a ripple effect in the community because their mothers and their grandmothers weren't able to access even beyond second grade or first grade or any education. And so E2E is coming into these communities and really creating this new precedent for what it means to be an educated girl. And yes, I'll just stop it at that and let Kata speak to kind of that reality of what rural education is at the moment, or what it used to be, and how E2E is trying to play a role.
Thank you, Katia. Yes, I am born and raised Honduras. I've been a teacher for the past 18 years and have been able to see front and center how youth is really struggling in urban areas to keep in school, to keep engaged, to keep interested, to be able to connect with their communities and their neighborhoods. And this is happening in urban areas. So rural areas, Katia mentioned something, are practically forgotten. And that is how those youth that live in those areas also feel. They feel that sometimes everything that is around them is not connected. They feel hopeless, you know? So what E2E has brought to this community and to the girls in these communities who see an endless cycle, right? It comes again. It's just a loop. My grandmother, my mother, this is what I do. This is what my sister is doing. So finding a meaning to graduate, to continue their education, it's hopeless because I've spoken to them and it's like, I am going to graduate and what? I will continue my studies and what? So most definitely, I have been able to see how that value of a mindset change, of leadership that the program also brings to the table is extremely important because it makes these girls realize the importance that they have, the role that they are playing in their communities, in their families, and expands to other girls that are not being able to participate in the program. Just changing this ongoing pattern that has been happening and is basically just these communities are also dying. People are just thinking about leaving the community. They are not thinking of giving back to their community. And this is the holistic approach that the E2E program has. And it's just amazing to see the girls when they come in, finish 6th grade, 7th grade, and when they graduate, you saw those bold, empowered girls when they are graduating. It's just amazing, so tangible, the change. It takes 3-4 years, but it's just amazing.
Right. Wow. Thank you so much. I think you said something, several things, both of you really beautiful. And I think that's why I'm so drawn to our name, right? Rise, because we're uplifting opportunities, providing them, but also helping our grantees, enabling them to do more, right? Uplifting opportunities. You said untapped potential and unexpected places. And so how beautiful is that these girls are off the grid, they're invisible, but opportunities and funding like this and organizations like yours provide visibility to those that are invisible. So thank you. You're truly breaking cycles. So thank you for the work that you're both doing in this regard. So let's move on to our next question and unpack this a little bit more. So how has the wider community, whether it's the women, families, men, boys, have reacted to the work that you're doing in these towns and rural, remote areas?
Sure. So it's a mixed reception, I would say. And one of my kind of favorite concepts that I've learned about in the past 5 years or so is this concept, and I encourage your viewers to also research this, is positive deviance. So the idea of being a positive deviant, because really these girls who are daring to receive an education when everyone in the community is telling them, girls, for what reason in the world are you going to try to get an education? You know, you're just going to end up pregnant with a family, at 12, 13 years old. You know that that's how it works in this community. So why are you being foolish? And so they are really considered these deviants, but positive deviants in the sense that they're trying to create change, but they're looked at negatively by those, especially the older adults in their community, as far as you dare to stray away from the norm, you dare to, and so they battle with that. The girls, tell us, and it's of course has a detrimental effect on their mental health sometimes when all they hear is just, they have to hold it within themselves, this optimism and this, power to move forward. But all they're hearing whispers and gossip all around the community of, this girl has the audacity to think that she's going to get educated and actually be something aside from a housewife. Like, what audacity? And so of course, that's not every situation. Of course, in some communities, when we arrive for the first time and announce, essentially that we're here to see if there's a desire to have secondary education, in some instances, we have, lines out the door, to put it, in those terms, where you have so many parents who are just like, finally, I have a safe place to send my child and not have them walk 4 hours by themselves on these unlit dirt paths to try and find the nearest public school because they're so far from the nearest city. So you have a variation, and I'm happy to say that mostly we have a positive reception, but in the cases that we don't, we have to work very hard to make sure that those girls don't succumb to that pressure and drop out. And yeah, so I would say it's a bit of a mixed one, but I'd let Kata add if she has anything else.
I think that definitely that is one of the major constraints that these girls have to deal with on a daily basis. But there's something really positive that I would like to talk about, and that the E2E program brings to the table. And it's just the empowerment of also teaching the boys that participate in the program this new masculinities, right? It's how they are looking at the girls as with equal opportunities, with an equal right to speak, with an equal right to have an opinion. And that is how they grow through the program. I mean, they go through 7th grade to graduating. And when you see them in those last 2 years, it's like they are dealing with that equal person, right? And that is very important, because those are the new generations that will be leading the communities, that will be starting new families. Those men will become fathers to small girls. And I think that is very, very important in E2E's job. They are also trying to break that cycle. What Katia was mentioning, it's very, very ingrained in their head, in their habits. And this is something new. And you can definitely see it when you speak to the boys and when you see them interact, when they do all these community work that comes along with the program. It's there, right? So it's creating that equality in the communities that has not existed before.
Wow. I'm so glad that you brought that point up, because I mean, they very much are a part of the conversation, right? In the equation. And so you sharing about the respect that is gained, the new masculinity, like it's okay to look at these future, you said it, as moms, wives, women in the villages and the towns and the areas.
Entrepreneurs.
Right. All of it. They're equal. So grooming them together, that's so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that point. I know our members will really like that as well. Let's go on to our next question. So we're getting close, but we want to learn more. This has been such a rich conversation. So thank you. So tell me about your future plans and aspirations. Like, you want to take over the world? Are there other regions that you're wanting to pursue and look into? So tell me a little bit about your future aspirations.
Yeah, of course. So E2E works predominantly in coffee producing communities in Honduras. And that's for the sheer fact that coffee grows in some of the most remote, isolated mountain tops, the highest altitude in the world, right?
Right.
That's where the best specialty coffee is grown, is that you seek out the most.
It's so good, right?
Yeah. I mean, the quality is, the farther you go up the mountain, the quality is getting even better. And that's where our kids live. That's where our students live, is the very top of the mountain, literally. And so the past 4 years or so, we've really been working to be advocates for the young people in coffee communities within the specialty coffee industry. So this is a little known fact within the specialty coffee world, that not only in Honduras, across Latin America, across parts of Africa, in coffee communities, secondary school access is scarce. It's so hard to reach these remote coffee villages, just because there is no logistical, infrastructure, transportation, all these other factors, the expense of moving yourself from one community to another. So we really are trying to serve as the voice for youth in coffee communities. I think there's excellent conversations around fair trade and fair working conditions and labor practices. But I think one of the missing pieces of the puzzle that E2E tries to really speak out on are the children of the coffee producers and what their future looks like and how that impacts the future of coffee. And I think Cata mentioned a little bit about how young people are leaving their communities. And of course, I think most people know Honduras because they hear about migration on the news. They hear about the border controversies and the policies. And so I think that, that also very much ties into why do people leave, and why, especially from rural areas, why do people leave Honduras? And so I think we're going to continue our work, and we're going to continue to be a voice for these coffee communities. We have relationships with coffee roasters and exporters already that have essentially committed to funding projects and continuing to sponsor school projects in the areas where they source coffee from. So it's a very incredible way for them to plant seeds in the community and to really show that they're investing in the future of coffee by supporting these young people to diversify their incomes. Coffee is a seasonal wage. There are months where there is no income coming in whatsoever after the harvest, and families suffer for months at a time. So imagine a young, educated person with a diversified portfolio of skills, and they're able to have different business lines, not only, wait, 6 months out of the year to sell their coffee and then have nothing and suffer for the rest of the year, but instead that young person can go on and start other lines of businesses. And so all of that, we should be considered in the conversation of how to support coffee communities. And aside from that, we want to continue growing within Honduras. We'd love to be in all regions where there are coffee communities. And then even beyond Honduras, of course, there's the aspiration. Because as I mentioned, this problem is a global one. And we feel like especially our approach to youth leadership has just yielded incredible results that we know are replicable and scalable. And we'd love to be able to pass that knowledge on to other communities in other parts of the world. So
Wow.
that's what we're working on.
Absolutely. I think that touches on what Cata was sharing just a minute ago about entrepreneurship, right? And you spoke on exactly that, like how do we utilize and even, look at the being versatile with these skills and the things that they're learning. So thank you so much for sharing where you guys are going, and the future looks so bright. So our last question, I always like to close out our conversations with, what is your why? Like, why did you say Honduras? Why did you say, here I am, send me, I'll fill in the gap. Here's what I think is missing. What drew you, Katia, to the board? Kata to the board, and so forth. So tell me, spend a little bit, tell me about your why. So Kata, we'll start with you, and then we'll close out with Katia.
Thank you. The why, the why has a lot of answers from my side. The why starts with the vision that Katia spoke to me around 6 or 7 years ago in Honduras. And the why, again, comes back to my first answer. It's just looking at this tangible problem that we have in rural Honduras. Education is advancing. As Katia mentioned, these kids are now legally they have to obtain their degree not through 6th grade, but through 9th grade. And there is no infrastructure. There is no way for them to have access to that education. So the educational system demands them to reach 9th grade to be able to have a certification for education. Nonetheless, the government isn't helping anybody reach these grades, because education traditionally in Honduras has reached, as Katia mentioned, 6th grade. So there's a 3-year gap that these kids have to find a way to fill. Traveling from one community to another is very expensive for them, buying the materials, looking for a school. This is something that E2E has brought to their communities. They are closing a very, very big gap in Honduras. And this is very important to mention because it's happening in every single rural community in Honduras. And this is something that definitely drove me. And when I found out what the program was about, you guys just mentioned something very important that I would like to also talk about. It's that generational handover that is happening right now between those farmers, those growers, the coffee communities that E2E is working with. And the youth does not want to get involved in those businesses. They are seeing this as something boring, as something too traditional for them. And if they leave, this community is going to end, that business will also end, and we start having these huge migration numbers, right, coming in from Honduras. So what the program is also helping them out is develop this sense of ownership. If I take over my parents' business, if I have new ideas to innovate, to bring in technology, everybody in these communities has a smartphone. So this is a challenge that the E2E program is also bringing to these kids and getting them interested in not leaving, but staying and just exploring what I could do and having a vision of growth for my community and just becoming those leaders. And that was so appealing to me to be part of that, right? It's a transformation that is going on in my country. It's a reality that I know so close about that I just couldn't say no to Katia. So that is the reason why I joined E2E's mission.
Yeah, speaking to the very core of who you are. I mean, that's where you were raised and from, and so it's all is a piece of the puzzle, right? All right, Katia, do you want to tell us?
Yeah. No, thanks so much, Kata. And just speaking to the financial burden that Kata just mentioned, I think it's an astonishing fact that I remember when I first heard, or when I first kind of ran the numbers on what it costs to send your child to a public school, a public secondary school. So imagine like a normal, average, median income family in the US, if they tried to send their child to medical school without any loans, without any scholarships, just out of pocket expenses you tried to pay for law school or medical school, it would be nearly impossible, right? For so many families. So that is the same kind of situation we're facing in Honduras. When you look at the percentage of household income that it would take to send their kids to secondary school, public school, it's essentially the same as a family here sending their child to medical school without any loans or financial aid. Sorry about my talk here. But I just wanted to say that my why. So I went to Honduras as a university student. I was a senior, and there's a couple things that most stood out to me and resonated with me. So one, I was there to work on water and sanitation. I'm so sorry.
We love animals. It's okay. I have a dog. We understand. And he sounds like a big dog, like my dog. So
fluffy thing that thinks he's much bigger. But so my project was to work on water and sanitation. And so I remember we went to this one rural village, and I'd never been to Honduras in my life before. So we were there for a week, and we were constructing what is called a pila. So it's basically built out of bricks and to store your water. And so I remember that we were there to do this project. We were mixing the cement, my classmates and I. And what dawned on me is that I was looking at the children that were surrounding us, that were observing us, and they were watching these, strangers in their community come and work in manual labor, and it's just such an odd experience for them. But they were watching us in this project, and I remember thinking, how this power dynamic was so wrong, in the sense that, a young person in this community should not be a passive bystander of what's happening, of their development. They shouldn't be the ones that are just watching these experts or these more educated people come into their communities and do this work, transform their community, improve their lives. But rather, why not teach them how to have the skills to do this on their own, to identify the needs in their own community and design their own solution? So I thought that, instead of being passive bystanders and just watching us from afar, the tables need to be turned. We need to be looking at this much differently, and empowering the young people to be their own change makers. Because if not, you're just repeating. Essentially, you're taking all that human capital and just like moving it away. Once that volunteer group comes, they're just flying away back home, and there's nothing left there. It remains at that baseline level. And so that was one reason. And the second was just the sheer fact that I was in university. It had taken me, I had to have people support me financially, but I had made it to university. And here I was in a community that could barely make it past 4th, 5th grade. And for me, it was all my classmates were here. We're going on to probably grad school. And it's just, here we go again. We're continuing our education. But here they were totally trapped. So it's that concept of the birth lottery as well, right? That we had won this birth lottery and we were here, and we were going to leave them exactly the same as they were. And so that disparity was very, it was very enlightening. And then it was also the fact that nobody was talking about this issue. We were there to work on water and sanitation, but there was this elephant in the room, which was the fact that nobody in this community would be able to go beyond 6th grade. And I felt that that was really kind of remarkable, that nobody was talking about this. Nobody, it was just through my own little side conversations that I learned that. So that was really, for me, I think, kind of a combination of factors, and made me come back to the US and say, I have no idea what I'm really doing. I've never even imagined starting a nonprofit in my life, but I feel like this is something worthwhile in at least giving it a try, and seeing if it works. So here we are.
Here we are.
10 years later, and it's working.
Wow. Ladies, this has been so rich. Thank you both so much for bringing us into Honduras, bringing us into the issues around education, and why you're tackling this issue. I think you really did a beautiful job, Katia, by putting it into perspective for us around like the cost and the correlation, right? That was a beautiful example to show us the equivalent of what that means for the families trying to provide education to their children in Honduras when we look at the cost of what sending your child to become a doctor would be. So thank you. That was a beautiful correlation to bring it, to really drive it home, as well as all the other things that you shared. It was just well-rounded. Thank you so much for giving us all that insight. We wish you all the best in future endeavors. We're so happy to have you as our June grantee. We can't wait to see what else you'll do. So again, thank you, Katia and Cata, for being here. And you said something up before I close out the call. You said that you're taking, the coffee is often grown at the top of the mountain in these very beautiful and remote areas. So I wanted to just say that thank you for taking these young people to the top of the mountain so that they can see just how bright their futures can be right over the horizon. So if they just have an opportunity to look right over the horizon, it's within reach. And it's within reach is because E2E provided it. So thank you on behalf of our members, our staff, for all that you are and all that you do. And we can't wait to finish out the rest of our time and year with you as our grantees and to learn more about the wonderful work that you're doing in Honduras. So thank you for being here. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Quinn. That was beautifully put. Really appreciate it.
Indeed. Thank you.
No, thank you.
It's been amazing.
Amazing. All right, members, we'll see you next month, same time, same place with our next grantee for next month. Thank you for joining.